Okay.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Hi, Elsie. Good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining in and welcome to Psych Care. And what we say basically is securing lives and then improving well-being, basically. And today we are so blessed. I mean, very, very blessed to have a very good, old, schoolmate of mine. It sounds like an Achimotan affair. Please don't be jealous because this is strictly an Achimotan affair. And I have Elsie with me and she's going to tell us a bit about herself. My name is Dr. Yvonne Otchere. I'm a psychologist and I'm very happy to be here to bring you, conversations around women's well-being. Elsie, can you tell us a bit about yourself, just, briefly?
Yeah. So my name is Dr. Elsie Osei-Nkansah. I am a board certified family physician. I've been practicing for over 10 years in Western North Carolina. And I do family practice is pretty much taking care of newborns all the way to, ages 90, 100-year-olds. I also do have some education in pregnancy, delivery, which I haven't done in a long time, but I did get training in that.
Right.
Now I focus a lot on preventive health, women's health, wellness exams, instead of trying to educate about the importance of that as women and pretty much getting healthcare together when we're looking at pregnancy and being mothers.
Right. Elsie, it's saying.
Hey, yo.
We needed that Ghanaian flavor, we needed it badly. So I just wanted to make sure you weren't lost and that you were still, with us. So thank you for that response. Okay, so I also have a very good friend of mine, and she's called Mary. Mary, can you introduce yourself just a bit?
Okay.
You don't have to mention your full name, just, who you are, what you do, basically.
Okay, my name is Mary.
Yeah.
I'm an accounts person and then I'm into fashion as well. Married for 8 years now and having challenges with my fertility issues. And tonight I would like to know much about it to get equipped and then to know what I need to do and what I need not to do. And then how best can I prepare as I wait?
Right. So thank you very much for joining this discussion. But basically, want to look at women's well-being. I mean, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and I feel that that's the best Valentine present we could give to women. Basically, having a sense of what it takes to, stay healthy, and not just stay healthy, stay productive as well. And when we talk about productivity, we are looking at, women's overall well-being, essentially. And so, also, I just want a question. And I mean, my first question would be that, what would it take, in your, how does a woman take care of herself with regards to reproductive health care, basically? How do we take care of ourselves?
So I think that starts way earlier than most people would think,
Right.
So a lot of the time there's this mentality that women's healthcare starts when you're getting ready to get married and think about having children.
Right.
And I think that's the mistake sometimes there, because women's health care really starts a lot earlier than that. It starts right when, as mothers educating their kids about the regular monthly cycle. That's when it starts for them. And then as you get a little bit older, it starts with making sure that you understand not just I'm having a regular cycle every month, but what does that mean? What do I need to do in order to maintain my full health? Not just I'm having a regular period, but do I have any other chronic health issues that could affect me down the road? I know, growing up at home, um, there wasn't a lot of things where people knew what their history is, like parents would be like, oh, I have diabetes. And I need to make sure my kids know so they know what to watch out for. A lot of that didn't happen. At least in my home, it did not. So as you get older and you start asking questions, what is going to affect me? What do I need to worry about? And that ties into women's health, because when you're trying to get pregnant, it's not just about I have a period every month, I need to get a pregnancy and I want a period. You have to worry about your other health. Do you have diabetes? Do you have high blood pressure? Do you have kidney disease? How does that play into the ability to get pregnant and stay pregnant? And have a healthy pregnancy. So I think it starts a lot earlier with us actually taking care of ourselves before we get to the point of I'm married and I'm ready to have children.
Right. It's interesting you actually mentioned this, because I mean, you think about some of the traditional trajectory to this discussion, for instance, the depot rights, and then they tell you that, well, historically, women have been prepared into womanhood in a certain way, traditional way, and that modernization is degrading all these relevant reproductive discussion, and we tend to have all kinds of theories or assumptions around that. So I'm very happy that you talk about that, and I remember clearly in school, I mean, I had a friend who had menstrual cramps. I mean, this is a kind of menstrual cramps that will take her to the hospital, have her put on admission for days. And I mean, later on, I mean, when we're all grown and all, married and family started for all of us. I remember that both of us had very significant issues with fertility. It took a while for her to have babies around that. So preach this, how do we draw that kind of awareness? And what kind of methodology have you used, in your practice that you think can be,
so like
referred to, women, I mean, empowering women to take responsibility for themselves. What would you say would be the one tool, or the tools, handy tools that, people can pick on and, create that kind of, healthcare conscious well-being for themselves? And does it make sense?
It makes sense. And so working here, there's a big difference with practicing here and translating that to home, right? Because here, I think I get a lot of young women who would come in and say, I'm having really bad cramps, or I'm skipping periods, or they'll say, I've been bleeding for 3 weeks and that's not normal for me. And I think at home, a lot of the time they may go to a parent and say, oh, I'm having cramps. And at least when I was growing up, he'd be like, take this, you'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
So it was never, oh, you've come to me 2-3 times with this cramp or with this bleeding that's not happening, or you're skipping months of periods. A lot of times it's like, oh, when you get older, it will get better. or you can take this medicine, it'll get better. But not a lot of people are taking you to figure out why that's happening. You know, personally for me, I had a lot of like irregular cycles when I was growing up. And in expressing that to my mom, she actually took me somewhere, which at that point didn't happen a lot, right? She took me to figure out why is she skipping months. And that may not happen for a lot of people. Where parents be like, let's go figure it out because it's happened twice. I think and I always tell my husband, the biggest thing I would love to do is get like a big education banner going that you can reach out, you can go and get these things evaluated, because sometimes they actually do mean something. It's not always just you're going to grow out of it. It's going to get better. Because what then happens is when we try to start getting pregnant or preparing for pregnancy, we have significant difficulties with that. Because we have all these issues that have not been addressed.
Thank you for that submission, Elsie. I totally agree with you. If you watched one of my videos on cervical cancer, you know, and I had a conversation with a survivor, and I mean, I think basically that's the experience with this kind of work, you know, where you encounter women and they keep giving you the same narration, and that is, you know, ignorant about what if. And I mean, one main thing I like to mention is that one of the recent documentations on actually published by the Ghana AIDS Commission is showing that there's a lot of intergenerational sex. So women having sexual intercourse with older men, or I mean, people not within their age, you know, variation, and then and then later on you have the encounter of, you know, talking to a survivor, and she tells you that, look, I have this experience and someone had to push me to go to the hospital to seek care. You know, do women listen to their bodies? In your experiential view, is there any way, I mean, you can advocate that, or you would say that it's just, you know, having a very vivid or systematic, you know, self-care routine, having a pelvic examination, going for screening, you know, how would you advocate or draw that kind of awareness around that space?
Yeah, well, and so I'm going to answer that. One thing I would say is when we talk about fertility, a lot of the times we focus on the woman, right? And there are a lot of fertility issues that are not the woman. So let me just put that out there before we even get going. Fertility issues are the men. And in most cases, they have to also be aware of that and be part of that conversation so that as a couple, successful in actually being able to fertility. When it comes to women's health or preventive health, a lot of the times the issue is I feel good, I feel fine, so I don't have any medical issues. Why should I go to the doctor when I feel fine? And it's called preventative health, because that's when you go to the doctor. You know, you go and make sure that you're getting screened for your blood pressure, diabetes, kidney issues, cholesterol issues. And those may not seem like they will affect your ability of being pregnant or staying pregnant, but they do. If you have diabetes, that sugar makes it hard to maintain pregnancy or even sometimes get pregnant. If you have high blood pressure, it affects the baby in terms of staying pregnant and how long you stay pregnant and baby development. If you have cholesterol issues, you have vessel issues. So knowing all of that and getting once a year, just once a year, and I tell people on your birthday, because you're not going to forget that, on your birthday you go, you get a wellness exam, a pelvic exam, breast exam, and you know what that you know that history about yourself.
Right.
You
Right.
don't have to wait to be married for these things to happen.
Right. Right. And how early should that start, Elsie? How early should that start?
So I mean, here we in being a family practice clinic, I do like wellness exams all the time.
Right.
So really, I do yearly checks for, and this is just like kids. Every child gets a child exam every year.
Right.
And then that transitions to as you get older because it becomes a routine for them.
Right.
So when you get older, 15, 16, 17, every year you're getting the wellness exams to know what you should be looking for.
Right.
Once you get to the point where you're like, okay, I am sexually active.
Right.
That's a very important part where you need to be having pelvic exams, pelvic evaluations. Before you even get to being sexually active, you want to make sure that you've had screening for sexually transmitted infections, gonorrhea, chlamydia. You and your partner can do this together.
Right.
It shouldn't be, you run and hide and get it done. And I would say you're going off to college. That is a great time to start taking control of your health.
Right.
You're going off to college, you go and get an exam, and you know what you are working with.
Right.
And then every year before you go to school, you just get that exam. I think that's very important because if you come to the issue where you're trying to get pregnant, and that's when we're focused on, why can't you get pregnant? Let's do some fertility labs.
Right.
That's a great way to start, but sometimes it's not just about the fertility lab. That's an issue that's affecting your ability to keep going.
Right.
And if you didn't know, you couldn't have worked towards helping that or fixing that to be able to get pregnant.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Elsie. You talked a lot about, your initial comments about men, taking responsibility for fertility issues, as well is laudable. I think that there's a lot of power relations when it comes to this conversation, in our part of the world, where, power is skewed. I mean, men are seen as, the decision makers of the family. So they get to run away around that issues. Let me use that word, carefully. They get to escape the throes of issues around that, and every blame is centered on the women, And so, this discussion is also geared towards empowering the women and, having them have that sense of realization that, look, you can have that sense of control for your well-being, essentially, and then take that giant strides towards maintaining that overall well-being. Mary.
Yes, please.
Yeah, yes. So you can start flowing with your questions.
Okay, she mentioned about the menstrual cramps. I want to know what causes it, because the pain can be unbearable, and there are some months there's nothing you do ease the pain. You take pain relievers, you use a hot water bottle, you try to lie down, but it's just not working.
But Mary, before Elsie comes in, you've had these cramps before marriage, right?
Yes.
Right. Elsie.
Very fortunate for me. My mom is a nurse, so when it started and it's becoming serious, I was taken to a gynae.
Right.
So I had a visit to the gynae at age 17. That was the first time I visited a gynae, and then I'll be visiting a gynae till I got married.
Right.
Along the line, I have to take a contraceptive for about 6 months to ease the pain. But after some time, it came back again. So I wanted to know, what do I do if I should have a female daughter or a friend also having that challenge?
So, menstrual cramps can be a lot of reasons that are causing it. Sometimes it could be that you're having menstrual cramps because you have a heavy flow period, and just that can give you some pain and cramping. If you're passing blood clots during your periods, that could cause some cramps. If you have like fibroids, which are very common in, a lot of African American women, that can cause you cramps. And then there are some other things like endometriosis, which is like the uterine tissue is sort of outside of where it's supposed to be, and that can cause cramps. So the contraceptives you mentioned is one of the easiest ways sometimes that we try and manage that. Because when you're younger, you're not trying to get pregnant, at least we hope not yet. And then we use the contraceptives to control those hormones, and that can help decrease that pain.
Right.
If we know or have an idea of what's causing those cramps, when you're trying to get pregnant, obviously you can't take contraceptives. And so trying to manage that either with some medication that you take around your period. You mentioned that you've been to a GYN. So the question would be, have they figured out why you're having cramps? Like, you've had pelvic exam, you mentioned. Do you need an ultrasound to figure out if there's something else going on? And that helps you sort of figure out, do I need to be doing more than just maybe taking a pain relieving medication when I'm having cramps? Because it's one of the hardest things to manage when you're trying to get pregnant, because you can't take the contraceptives.
Okay.
Right? So then you're stuck with pain reliever, the heating pad, all these things to try and manage the pain, but is the cause of those cramps figured out?
Okay.
Right.
I remember I ran some series of tests. I can't remember some of them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the pelvic scan, all right. And then I did some blood tests those days. But I was very young, so I couldn't remember what the doctor said to my mom. But that's why I said along the line, they gave me the contraceptive. As at then, I wasn't sexually active as well, so it was cool for me. But I was expecting it to go away for some time, because they said, oh, once you get married or you get sexually active, the pain should subside. But it's been many years now, 32, 33, and I'm still having the pain. And I don't know what to do. But I have to go again. My gynae said to take some time, it may go away.
Yeah, Mary, I think your concern is how that is related to fertility as well. Because you've been trying to get pregnant for 8 years, basically, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Elsie, is there any way prolonged use on contraceptives for such cure can influence fertility issues?
So not that we've found with studies. There are some people that could be on contraceptives for years, and then when you stop it, your cycle should resume, because the birth control, whether it's the pill, the arm implant on the one they insert in your uterus, it's not really changing your hormone production from your ovaries, right? It's not changing that.
Right.
It's just augmenting it.
Right.
So when you take that away, your regular cycle should resume.
Right.
I guess my question would be for Mary is, you mentioned that you had a lot of this stuff done when you were younger.
Yeah.
Have you had any new studies done now in the past couple years or so that you've been trying, you said 8 years you've been trying to get pregnant?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And they didn't really find anything going on that could explain why?
No, please. I did an HSG, and I did a pelvic scan again.
When was this?
Then,
when was this?
That was about 3 years ago.
2 years.
3 years ago.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I mean, the hard thing about fertility is honestly you don't know. I mean, personally, with my husband, it was 6 years until we had a baby, right? So it's tough. And for me, I knew that we had some issues we had to deal with. because of knowing my history, I knew we were going to have issues. So it was clearly not surprising because I had that idea that this is not going to be easy. But it's so very concerning when you're trying everything you can and there is nothing that's happening. But there's definitely a lot of things in life, the harder you try, the harder it works out. And I can tell you that's not necessarily the same with fertility.
Right. I mean, Mary, I think in particular has had other issues as well. Mary, so you recently had a lump taken out of your, your breast as well.
Yes.
Can you tell Elsie about that?
Okay, so along the line, I found out I had a lump in my right breast when I was taking a bath one day. So I got scared, and then I decided to run a test on it, and then it has to be removed. I got scared actually, but after speaking with Dr. Yvonne, I gathered some courage and then went to the hospital for the surgery to be done. And then through that, currently I'm battling a BP is unstable. So I don't know how best to manage that currently. Since you just mentioned that you have to check your BP so that it doesn't affect your pregnancy period.
Yeah, I mean, so it sounds like there may be a lot of things going into what's happening with you. It's not, I don't, and I think that's the point we're trying to make, right? It's not always just I can't get pregnant. I think it sounds like there's a lot of things going on that are playing a factor in your fertility. And we don't know if the blood pressure thing is new, but if we're getting regular checkups, then that may have peaked at some point, right? And I'm assuming, or at least I'm hoping, that if they've done some blood pressure stuff, that you've also had workup in other areas, not just to check your fertility, but for your wellness as well. Because if that's been done, then we know that, you don't have thyroid issue, you don't have diabetes, you don't have other hormone problems that could be affecting the fertility issues. Because a lot of the times, I mean, I know people that have had thyroid issues, which is not related to, the thyroid is nowhere near your female organs, right? But having thyroid issues can affect fertility. So the focus should not just be on the female reproductive system. The focus should be on the whole person, because that plays a lot of factor in how you manage that person. And one thing I always say in my clinic is everybody's completely different.
Right.
Whatever's going on with you may not be what went on with me or what may go on with Yvonne. So if you know what is your history, what you're working with, it makes it easier to address the issues.
Right.
Do you have like a primary care doctor or a family doctor who manages everything for you?
No.
Okay. So the OBGYN you go to, do they manage just your reproductive stuff or is it everything?
He was only managing that for me.
Okay. I mean, I think I
only see him when I want to talk. So he asked me to see him when I'm getting married.
Okay.
So I visited him when I got married, and then he said we should give a space of a year or two before we can say the cramps is affecting them, the pregnancy, the fertility issue, because we can't say because I'm having cramps, I wouldn't be able to give birth because the ovaries and then everything was perfect. Mm-hmm. The size of the uterus was okay.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, we define fertility as you've been trying to get pregnant for a year and you've not been able to get pregnant. Sometimes it's a little bit of impatience on our part too, where you get married. And I know this from like talking to my sister's friends, and they're like, I've been trying to get pregnant for 2 months. Nothing's happened. Okay. That doesn't mean you have fertility issues.
Right.
Sometimes it just means you're having sex the wrong time of the month. So,
Right.
you know, so giving it at least a year until you can say, I'm having fertility issues. And then after that, focusing on what are the issues, what could be my problem. And if you're trying to fix it and you give it another year and nothing's happening, that's how we usually manage things. But you have to give it time. And I guess my suggestion, Mary, may be it might be time to get a full person evaluation, not just centered around fertility, but to see if there are any other chronic issues that are there that are not necessarily being addressed that could be affecting fertility.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's been 8 years. I think that's quite a long time, Elsie, is it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, mine was 6, and I thought I was gonna go crazy. So,
Oh, mine was about 2 or 3, and I think I did.
So
go
I
crazy.
completely understand that, Mary. I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that might be helpful. Just go and figure out, do I have a chronic medical issue? I'm not necessarily here for you to check my fertility labs.
Right.
I'm here for you to check my sugar, my thyroid, my kidney, my blood pressure. Like, what is going on in me, with me, that could be inadvertently affecting my fertility.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You know, the practice here is a lot of spiritual attributions to fertility issues, you know. There's either a witch, you know, trying to prevent you from having babies, or
I know, right?
we talk about everything about ill spirituality, and we forget about women's, I mean, the overall well-being.
We forget about taking control of it ourselves.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously. So I'm happy you mentioned this, and I'm sure Mary, I'm sure you're happy about this. I mean, if you could have a thorough examination, let's know what's going in there, and let's know, you know, what other thing may be preventing, you know, your issues with your conception, then, you know, would have a way out of it. I'm sure this year I mean, one of your New Year resolution was actually centered around this, and so this conversation is to empower you and have you have that baby, so that we'll have Elsie come around again and give you, you know, some tips on
motherhood.
Yes, what to do.
I don't know about that.
And all that.
I don't know about that. I have a almost 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I don't know how that's going.
Elsie, what would be the one word for women in that kind of preventive health care? What would be the one word for them?
What do you mean the one word for them? Like the one word in terms of...
If you have to counsel a woman in Ghana, a young woman, you know, and tell them reasons why they need to seek, you know, proactive well-being, what would be the one word for them?
I think for me, it would probably be you giving them an opportunity to take control. You know, as I'm looking way back, okay, when you're like in early college or wherever, there really is not a lot of control. You don't have a lot of control over anything. So that's something you can be in control of.
Right.
Is you take that initiative and you go and get evaluated. I know that, you know, here it was a thing that I did with one of my good friends. We went on the same day, we made the same appointments. So you go get checked out, I get checked out. We don't necessarily need to talk about our histories if we don't want to.
Right.
But you're doing it together, doing it with somebody, a good friend or somebody you trust,
Right.
is helpful.
Thank you.
And when you get married, you can do it with your husband. You know, we can schedule it
you.
the same day, go get evaluations, and then go have lunch afterwards. So it could be something that is a routine thing for you without it becoming cumbersome.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Elsie, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Mary, thank you for joining
Yeah.
us.